That's what I want to do. All right, Matt, why don't you go ahead and start by introducing yourself and just kind of explaining what a loan officer is and what they do.
My name is Matt Cunningham, and I am a mortgage loan officer, and the government calls us mortgage loan originators. And what we do is we help a borrower who's going to buy a house that needs mortgage financing. We help them with the process of getting the mortgage loan. And like, you might be familiar with getting a car loan, getting a student loan, that there's a very complex process to get a mortgage loan. And my job is to help a borrower navigate that process of getting a mortgage loan and going through the proper paperwork, setting them up with a proper mortgage loan that fits their needs for their income, for their credit, for their down payment, and guide them through that process so where they can, when they get approved for the loan, they can then purchase their home, and then they'll have their mortgage loan. So that's my kind of in a real basic nutshell. That is what we do for a living, is we help people get a mortgage loan to buy a house.
Awesome. Very thankful for that.
Yeah.
And so, Kristen, were you going to say something?
No. And I was going to say, and you also do refinancing of loans too.
Correct. The mortgage loan. Yeah, the mortgage loan process. There's a lot of different facets. There's people that when you purchase a house, there is a purchase mortgage transaction. That's where you're going to buy the house for the first time and you haven't had a mortgage loan before. And a mortgage loan, then after you own the house, you don't have to keep it forever. You don't have to keep it for 30 years. You can pay off the loan or you can do a refinance. In a refinance transaction, that is to help you with change your mortgage loan setup. Do you want to get a shorter term to pay it off faster? Do you want to get cash out to pay for maybe a new car, go on vacation, maybe education in the future? Do you want to get a lower interest rate and thereby getting a lower payment per month? So there's different facets to the purchase transaction and buying a house. And then there's a whole other side of the mortgage business where people do refinances for all kinds of different reasons.
It's funny because Allie just went through us buying her first home and got a loan with you. And then I just did a refinance. So we both are representing both aspects here. So yeah.
Correct. Yeah. And there's also types of loans where there's mortgage loans set up to build a house, kind of like what Allie did, but it's more complex where it's not building a smaller house, but a big giant house. There's processes for buying land. There's all kinds of different mortgage loan transactions. So yeah, we could spend a long time just talk about the different kind of transactions there are available. So it's a very complex business with a whole lot of different moving pieces that you have to, when you get into this process, you got to decide which kind of business I'm going to be in. Am I going to be in a refinance loan officer? Am I going to be a purchase mortgage loan officer? Or am I going to be a construction perm loan officer? So there's many different parts to this business where I've been doing this for 34 years. And it's not any day is the same as the previous day. Not any borrower is the same. Not any transaction is the same. So it keeps you. It's sort of the same, but in a lot it's not, because you're dealing with different people and different types of transactions every day.
So what types of skills would you say that you need, or personality even, to become a loan officer and do what you do?
Sure. I would say with my job, it is a combination of, you have to be sales oriented and you have to be finance oriented. Okay. And, I've seen successful people in this business come from both backgrounds. I've seen people that are very successful at sales that can sell, anything to anybody, anytime. And they've become successful because they can sell. They're people. They know how to communicate. I've also seen people that are very good with finance and accounting and math also be successful in this business. So but it is a combination of both. You have to be able to willing to deal with people, because I deal with the general public. I talk to people every day, and you have to be willing to work with them. You have to be able to communicate, and that's verbally and in written. You have to be very important in this business, because you're explaining one of the most important transactions a person's ever going to have in their life. They're borrowing potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars. And you have to be able to explain that to them very thoroughly, because if you don't, they can, it can make the whole transaction get upset just because you did not communicate properly the expectations of what is needed and is what is required to get the mortgage loan. So communication is very important. Then there's the finance side, where you have to be willing to know numbers. Math is important. Ideally, I got an old-fashioned calculator right here that every day that I work on. I work on computers with spreadsheets. Math is very important. And then from math, the basics of understanding math, algebra. I think that class in high school is funny, but how do you get to X from Y to Z? You have to do a lot in the mortgage business. Same thing. And then math takes you to accounting, and accounting is important. You have to know debits and credits, and then there's finance, know how the markets work, and interest rates and bonds and mortgage-backed securities. And then goes on to economics, knowing what's going to happen with the economy and how's the economy changing, and things we're going through right now in our country with elections. How's that going to change interest rates that you're going to charge people? So it's very dynamic, but it starts with the basic building blocks of you want to communicate, be very good with your English, very good with your writing, very good with, just being able to reading comprehension. And then it goes on to the math part, and then math builds on to go through accounting and finance and economics, business law. So there's all kinds of different, pieces where the basic what they're learning in high school right now as a student, that's your building blocks. And you have to learn that to be able to go on to the next step and know the more detailed, economics and accounting. So that's just where I would say is in high school, if you're studying to be, I would say to be a mortgage loan officer, you don't have to be a college graduate. There's no rule or law that says you have to be a college graduate, but you have to know the basics of the math, the finance, the accounting. You have to have either a strong background in that, or the college education with a business finance or business accounting degree does help greatly. Okay, there's no written law says you have to have a college degree, but it does help a lot. And that's what I did. I went to high school at a college bound curriculum. Then I went on to college and went to a business school. I got a business finance degree. And that did help when I got into the mortgage business. That helped greatly with a background of all, accounting, finance, economics, because I use that stuff every day. Some of my friends joke with me, I'm the only person they know that actually went to college for what they do for a living. They went to school for music and now they're, a chef, and they went to school for, engineering, but now they're in nursing. So there's, I do actually do what I went to college for. So most major colleges will have a business department, and they will, there's that background, whether it be a 2-year college, 4-year college degree, any classes you can get in the accounting, finance, marketing, general business is a big plus, because it does help you understand this process.
So then whenever you graduated from college, what did you do? What did you go into first? Have you always been in the mortgage lending business, or what?
Yeah, well, I'm an old man and I graduated college in 1986, probably before most of your students were even born. And in 1986, I went to college for business finance, and the economy was different then. The economy was, people think the economy is slow now, what we're in now with the pandemic, but it was just as bad or worse back then. There was not as many jobs to be had. And I went to school for business finance, and I interviewed all over the I'm from the Midwest. I'm from Indiana, and I went to Indiana University. So I drove over the Midwest, Chicago, Columbus, Ohio, St. Louis, Missouri, Indianapolis, tried to get a job. There wasn't a whole lot of business jobs available at that time. So I answered, young people see this much anymore. I answered a little ad in a newspaper, in the wanted ads, and it was for a mortgage job. And I did have some mortgage classes in college, and it went to the interview, and in 1986, and here I am in 2021. 5 years later, I'm still in the mortgage business. So it was basically just I wanted to be working in business. This was the opportunity that was presented to me, and I am here ever since. And it's been kind of a lifer. This has been my lifetime career, is doing this job. So really haven't done a whole. I was in high school. I did work in business. I worked in a restaurant. And I think the restaurant, was working at a part-time restaurant job, got me, I was promoted to shift manager. So, that little bit of business background along with your education did help. And when I was going to college, this was even before student loans were real big, I had to work while I was going to college. So I worked in a factory, and it worked worked during the night and went to school during the day, and just working to see how the factory worked. And it's everything you do, part-time job. If it's a business, it's going to help you in another facet of your life, whether it be a mortgage loan officer, whether it be any type of business. You see how business operates, you see how the cash flows, you see how operations, finance is set up. So every job that you can get supplements your education is very important. Pay attention to what the details of it, and that will help you with your future career.
And I'm sure that it helped you develop your people skills, especially working in the food, the restaurant industry.
That's right. You have to be able to take the people's order and get it to them, get them hot and fresh, and and you deal with people. And it's just like in our business. There is not every transaction is perfect. You just have to learn how to deal with people and situations that might not be great. Some people, when you work at fast food, their food's cold. Some people didn't, they wanted hot and spicy and they got mild. When I worked in the Mexican restaurant. So it's just like, it teaches you how to develop skills to deal with people and with all kinds of different situations involved with business.
Right.
Great. Speaking of business, what type of financial institutions would you see a financial loan officer in?
Okay, that's a very good question. The federal government I am a federally licensed, and you have to be a federally licensed person to do this job. Okay. And then inside that federal licensing, there's two different groups of people. There's ones that work for banks, and there's ones that work for mortgage lenders, like what I work for. Okay. But both of us have to have a federal license. So beyond going to, getting your high school or college degree, getting a job in the mortgage business, then you have to go into government regulation and their control on our industry. 10, 15 years ago, a lot of people lost their houses, went into foreclosure. The federal government came down with a bunch of rules and regulations to manage the mortgage market, make sure that potentially that would never happen again. So we are very highly government regulated. So I have a government license. When an individual does come into my job, they have to take 20 hours worth of education, and they have to pass a series of tests. So there's federal testing to get involved with this business to be a mortgage loan officer. So once you get into that, then you can find your employer. And there's the federal government treats them slightly differently. There's banks like Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Truist, down to your local credit unions like Founders. There's different institutions that are under the banking sector of this business. Then there's companies like myself, where I work for a company that's all we do is mortgage loans, where you can go into a bank and get a checking account, savings account, car loan, and get a mortgage loan. But then there's companies like ours that I work for that are federal mortgage lenders, and all I do is mortgage loans. So there's different tracks of employers that you can go into. It kind of, you saw it before, there's different types of mortgage loans and different kind of transactions. So there's every single step of the way, there is choices to make. What I want to do. Do I want to work for a big bank? Do I want to work for a mortgage lender? So you have these different opportunities in paths in this career that you're not always having to stay with one particular part of the business. You have some options and choices to make.
Great.
But there again, it all comes back. Which path you take, you still have to have your federal mortgage license to do this job.
Okay.
Yeah.
So would a student then get that license once they graduate from college, or is that something they can get while they're in college? Or
they can get their license to be a mortgage lender at any time. Okay, they would first have to be employed by an employer. That would find an employer, and you could work for there's in the mortgage business, you don't always have to start at being a mortgage loan officer. You can start in the business as being a clerk, receptionist. You can be a mortgage loan processor, mortgage loan, closer. I started in this business as a mortgage loan insurer or shipper. So it was after the loan closed, I helped take care of some of the documentation after the loan closed. So I started there. So the loan officers kind of is a graduated position where you wouldn't probably most likely start as a mortgage loan officer right off the bat in the mortgage business. It'd probably be beneficial to get a entry-level starting type position where you can get a feel for the business, understand the terminology, what's expected in the transaction, the flow of the business. So it would be important, not to, you could come right out of high school or college and get a mortgage originator job and a mortgage originator license, but there's more likely a progression in the business where you'd start at a clerk or entry-level job and then work your way up. And that depends on the individual. Would that be, 1 year, 2 years, 10 years? It just depends on your track in the business, what you're doing. I've known people that got in the business as a loan processor, and they have been very happy for 30 years. And we haven't got into the risk of being a loan officer yet, but there is potential risk, maybe that they don't want to take on that potential risk, and they like the stability of being a loan processor. Maybe they can go from a loan processor to being a loan officer, but maybe they can go from a loan processor to being a loan underwriter. So there's different career paths within the mortgage business that are, far beyond just the mortgage loan originator position, loan officer position.
Okay. So, you were just talking about risks. So now I guess this would be a good time to ask about pros and cons of this business.
The pros and cons. The pros in this business is that, number one, and just get honest with everybody. And I know everybody, how much money can you make? And that's the most important thing. Why do I get up every morning to work? It mainly is for income, to take care of my family and my lifestyle. That's just the main thing. And most people go to work for is for income. And that's probably one of the biggest things, that the pro is where you can go to the mortgage business. There is potential to make good money. Okay. And that's, I know people in my business that, I've made $250,000 a year before. I know people that make $1 million a year doing this business. Okay. So the income potential is very high. Okay. And so we'll kind of, in the income piece, we'll just go right to the butt real quick. How I get paid is commission. Okay. And that is where you get paid for actually finalizing a mortgage loan transaction. So that loan has to go through the process of being underwritten and approved and closed before I ever get paid. So I have to successfully complete the transaction before I ever get a paycheck. And then I also have to garner that business. I have to farm it. The farmer doesn't get paid when he puts the seed in the ground. The farmer gets paid when he harvests that crop and takes it to the market and sells it. That's similar to my position, is that I don't get paid until that loan closes. So there is a lot of risk involved with that, because getting the point from point A to point B in closing, starting at A and ending at B, that can be months at a time, especially if a borrower builds a house. I can start that process in January, and they might not close their house till July or August. So that means for 6 months, I might be working hard on that person's loan every day, but I don't get paid until that person closes. They moved into their house, so to speak. So
that's us.
Yeah. So there's risk there. So, people get in this job, they go, well, how do I live for 6 months? How do I get paid? That's where the risk of starting up in this business, you do probably have to have a little bit of a savings built up. You don't want to start this business, as a younger person that has bills to pay, car loans, student loans, trying to get, pay your apartment rent, and then all of a sudden be a mortgage loan officer. You might not get paid for months on end. So the biggest pro is the income potential, but the biggest con is income not so potential. And because there's been years where I make very good money. There's also been years where I didn't make very good money. Probably could have made more money working, McDonald's certain years. So you have to, be able to take that income peaks and valleys, and you have to be able to navigate that to be successful as business also. Because I know a lot of people that had a really great year, and then they followed up with a really bad year. That really bad year was so bad that they could not go on in the future in this business. So the income pros and cons are the biggest thing. Another pro is that you can, in this business, you kind of set your own schedule. A lot of people, I don't particularly have to work 9 to 5 every day. I can set my own hours. I've not very many times in the last, 30 years had to be somewhere at 8 o'clock, So, it's not as rigid of a schedule. So that's kind of a pro, but there again, this is a commission business. So that flexible schedule can also be a con, because I work a lot of weekends. I work Saturdays and Sundays. I work in the evenings. It just depends on how the business dictates. I do have to work many hours beyond a regular 9 to 5 schedule. So if you don't want to work past 5 o'clock every night, maybe this business is not for you. If I don't ever want to work on a weekend, then maybe this business is not for you, because a lot of people go out and buy a house and get a mortgage loan on a weekend because they're off their job. They go out and buy a house they want to buy, and they talk to a mortgage person. So you have to be, you have a pro of a flexible schedule, but then again, you have to be able to work extended hours, and you have to work, many weekends, holidays, even sometimes, barrels on 4th of July having fireworks, and you're sitting there doing a mortgage loan. So there's a flexible schedule, but then it's also, because it's commission, you have to work on certain times when other people are off work. So that's another con of it. And then it's just it's very, we're dealing with general public. And like I said up front, every transaction is interesting. I deal with people from all backgrounds. I've dealt with first-time home buyers. I've dealt with millionaires. I've dealt with doctors, lawyers, people that work in fast food. They could all buy a house. So you get an interesting mix of background from people. You buy big houses, small houses, refinance a small loan or a big loan. You deal with senior citizens. You deal with, people in their 20s just getting out of college. So there's all kinds of different people you deal with, but you're also dealing with the biggest transaction in your life. Okay, those people are buying this house. Their money's on the line, and you have to be able to put up with a very stressful, situation, because sometimes it doesn't go so well. I wish I could say that every loan transaction was a rainbow with a pot full of gold in. Unfortunately, it's not. Some people have issues, and that's also there again. It's the stress of it. You have to be able to deal with the stress of the job and the people's expectations and their anxiety, because you get to personally know people. You know a lot about them. When it's all said and done, I know more about a person than their doctor knows. I know about their credit. I know about their income. I know how much money they have in the bank. I know all about them. And you have to be able to take all that information, and you have to be able to use it to their benefit, but understand their situation, that they're still a human being, that there could be some anxiety with them. So that's just some basic, pros and cons. Is that money's good, but it can't be so good. The timing of working, I work a lot of hours, and that's another thing, is that you work a lot of hours in this business and there's no overtime. That's another thing about commission, is that a lot of times your commission, you don't get an hourly salary, for most jobs. It's your commission. So it's the harder you work, kind of, you ever hear that adage, is the harder you work, the more money you can make. This business is that fits that mold.
Matt, when you're speaking of commission, is it a percentage of the mortgage you're
yes,
working on?
in this day and age, that's kind of transformed over the last 10 plus years. The federal government's kind of got into what commission means, and they've kind of written rules of what commission means. And anymore, commission means it is generally a percentage of the loan amount. So I get paid a percentage of the loan amount. So if somebody buys $100,000, gets a $100,000 mortgage loan, I'll get paid less than somebody gets a $300,000 mortgage loan. So there's certain rules and regulations for the federal government that dictates the percentage how I get paid. So the larger the loan you do, the more money you could possibly get paid for commission. The more loans you do, you can get paid more. So that's kind of where I'm at in my career. I do loans in the $100,000 to $400,000 range for most folks, but I have to do a higher percentage or higher number per month to get the same percentage as somebody who lives out in San Francisco and does one loan a month for $5 million. I have to do 10, 12 loans to make the same amount of money that somebody else in Honolulu might make for one loan. So it's different. There is financial impact of where you work, what market you're working on, because you might be a loan officer that deals with big houses. People buy $1 million houses, and you might make more money per transaction, but you only might be able to close 1 or 2 of those a month. Where if you work with a builder or you work with a realtor, you do somebody refinances, you might have to do multiple loans per month to make the same amount of money as somebody only doing one loan. So you have your option of how you can get to making money, but there is rules and regulations on the commissions generally based in this day and age for the government regulations based off of the loan amount. Yep.
Thank you.
All right, Matt, the last question that we have for you is what advice you would give to students who are thinking that they would like to go into this business?
What I would say is that, when you're looking at what I want to do for the rest of my life, it is important to, if you want to get into the finance business or any type of business, I would say in high school, if you have business classes that are available, I would definitely sign up for those. But like going back to the beginning, the base education you want to have is you want to have a good English, reading, writing, comprehension. That's very important because I do spend most of my days, I look back at my career and my most important class in high school was a typing class. And people go, oh, that was awful. When I was in high school, it was an old clunky typewriter. You put paper in and, ink and all that stuff. I type every day. That's what I do for a living, is basically type. So typing is very important. So those little classes you might not think are important, that's important. And then your English and your writing and your reading comprehension is very important. And then math. So that's the biggest building blocks of this job. And then from math, if your high school offers, business accounting classes, I would say that's a good building block. Then on to college, if you want to get this business, I do think that going on to a business program at a 2-year or 4-year college, getting business administration, business marketing, business finance, any one of those paths in college can get you into this business and make you successful. But just the basic, understanding of math, finance, economics is important to get in this business. That's where I would have a student that's interested in this process, because beyond the mortgage business, there's just regular banking. In regular banking, you work at a bank and help people get a car loan, checking account stuff. That's important to have a same communication, same math background. There's also in this business, there's realtors, and realtors sell the houses. They have to have a knowledge of business law. They have to have a knowledge of the real estate laws. They have to have a basic understanding of math. So beyond the mortgage loan officer job, I deal with groups of people every day to get to make this transaction successful. There's attorneys do the closing. So, and that's what attorneys, they're real estate attorneys, and that's what they do for a living. They close real estate transactions. So there's all kinds of potential jobs out there in the finance business, where it be mortgage loan business, banking business, real estate business, attorney business, but we all do the same thing. Is we all help people. The end goal of getting a mortgage loan or getting a loan, or savings accounts. There's all side. There's the other side of that. There's stockbrokers. There's all kinds of jobs in the finance. My son works in the insurance business, so there's just and that he does a lot of business insurance. So but it all kind of goes back to the communication, the math background, is to start those building blocks. And those classes might not seem so important sometimes with the math, but that's what I do for a living. And it's just, I'm glad I took it when I was in school. That's just where to start.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Kristen, do you have a question?
No, I'm so glad you brought up all that.
I can't hear you.
Turn it up.
Great. I'm so glad you brought up all the various careers you can do in the mortgage business, because there are a lot of different things.
There's many. Yeah, there is countless, hundreds of different jobs that there are in the finance business, the real estate business, the banking business, the mortgage business. There's we could spend all day just talking about the different jobs there are just at our company and what the people do. And there's people that work in human resources. There's people that work in accounting. There's just hundreds of different jobs that people do work in to make any business successful. But there's just a lot of career paths out there for individuals who want to get into business or finance. There's countless opportunities.
Well, this was all so helpful. I feel like I learned a lot. There's so much to learn. So we appreciate you taking your time to talk about your profession. And I know that our students are going to learn a lot from this.
They're good. I'm glad I could help.
Yes,
hopefully
thank you so much.
Somebody can, see a career path that it sometimes might not be the most exciting job in the world, because we do a lot of jobs, just paperwork and working on a computer, but it does, it's got income potential. It's got a potential for a career.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, thank you for educating us and the students. So this is very helpful. So thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Matt.
All right. Goodbye.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye.